This episode of Dragon Ball DAIMA was simply one of the most important episodes in the entire Dragon Ball franchise. This episode just revealed to us the origin of the universes and the being who created all things, or almost all things. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, stick around until the end of the video because there's a lot of cool stuff for us to discover. The episode kicks off with Majin Buu, accompanied by Arinsu, challenging Tamagami number 1, and the fight starts off kind of strange, with Majin Buu showing a personality and fighting style that's a bit eccentric. At first glance, it feels like Tamagami isn't struggling much against Majin Buu, but he does seem a little surprised by Buu's unusual fighting style. After this brief start to the fight, we switch to Goku's group, who are using the warp to travel between worlds. They use the military police's password, and when the warp questions them, saying they're not police officers, they make up an excuse, claiming they're actually relatives of police officers. This convinces the warp, and it lets them through. Shin suggests they go straight to the first world, since with the ship and the military police's password, they should be able to get through. But Goku wants to go after the Dragon Ball that's in the second world, and Glorio obviously agrees. Meanwhile, in Vegeta's group, they've already recovered the plane that was stolen, and Bulma is admiring the reflection of her own skin in the plane's glass. Piccolo and Vegeta discuss the situation, agreeing that Goku is right to think it's better to go after the Dragon Balls. As Piccolo points out, their Dragon Balls will be useless now that Denda has turned into a baby. Out of nowhere, Hybis decides to hit on Bulma, saying she could be his girlfriend. Vegeta gets pissed and says they're married, but Hybis doesn't care. The guy's shameless. Vegeta says he wants to go back to being an adult soon, but Bulma says she's enjoying being a kid and tells Vegeta to turn back into an adult on his own. Obviously, Vegeta says no, and Hybis comments that he likes big boobs. Vegeta gets mad when he says that, but he doesn't deny it, and Piccolo notices Hybis is actually right. So there you have it, folks. Vegeta likes big boobs. People always say Vegeta is the most human of the Saiyans, right? That's more than proven now. Unfortunately for him, before too long, his treasures will shrink, since in Dragon Ball Super, Bulma lost a bit of her attributes. However, in Dragon Ball Super, Super Hero, we see she's been making some adjustments to her body, so maybe she'll take care of that for Vegeta's happiness. Anyway, I don't even know why I'm wasting time talking about this. Let's get back to the episode. The fight between Tamagami number 1 and Majin Buu continues, and now we can clearly see the Tamagami's total superiority. It's not looking good for Buu, folks. The Tamagami is really far superior. While this fight continues in the first world, Goku and his group arrive in the second world. They're being monitored by King Goma, who is quite worried about their progress. Pansy notices the plane is flying much faster, and Glorio explains that the air in the second world isn't as heavy as in the third, so they can fly faster. Moreover, Glorio says Tamagami number 2 isn't far from there, so they should get there quickly. Maybe the journey through the second world will be much shorter than the one through the third. That would be a shame in my opinion, since it would have been nice if they explored the second world as much as the third. They start talking about the presence of Krakens in the second world, giant sea monsters that live in the ocean. But it's not the Krakens that attack them, it's the military police, with a group of planes opening fire on them. Glorio tries to escape with the plane and even counterattacks, but he isn't very skilled with it and ends up getting the worst of it. Their plane gets hit by a few shots, but then Goku asks to step out of the plane and handles the enemies, taking down all the planes in no time. Goku could have acted sooner, don't you think? Then the police wouldn't have had time to mess up their plane. But anyway, and there's this part where Goku sticks to the glass of one of the police planes, which might be a reference to the Broly movie, where he does something kind of similar with Frieza's soldiers. But I'm not sure if that was an intentional reference. When Goma sees the planes being taken down, he and Degesu are shocked by Goku's power. Goma gets really scared and says they should bring the entire military police to the first world. Goku's group is super happy they managed to get rid of the police, but the problem is that after being damaged, their ship starts flying lower and ends up within range of a Kraken, which attacks them. The Kraken captures the plane, and they have to get out quickly to avoid getting killed, but Pansy goes back to the ship and starts getting crushed inside, so Goku returns to help. The plane is swallowed by the Kraken, but Goku and Pansy barely manage to escape. That's when we find out the reason Pansy went back. It was for the Dragon Ball, which she managed to grab at the last second. I found this whole airplane scene a bit forced since Goku should be able to tear that Kraken apart in like a second. It felt odd that he didn't even try to attack the Kraken. But there was a reason for all of this to happen, and we'll see it shortly. Without the plane, they have to fly, so they come up with the idea of waiting for Vegeta's group to hitch a ride with them. That's justice for Goku. He refused to give his friends a ride, and now he'll have to ask for their help. What goes around comes around. Shin points out that the Namekian's original planet is floating nearby, so they decide to wait there. So that's why the Kraken swallowed their plane. It was just an excuse for them to visit the Namekian's first planet. It's a pretty flimsy excuse, but at least we'll get to see some interesting stuff. Back in the first world, Majin Buu is still getting wrecked by Tamagami number 1, who's humiliating the poor guy. In the second world, Goku and the others are already on the old Namekian planet, and Goku is amazed at how similar this planet is to the Namek he knew. Shin explains that they must have brought seeds from the trees and plants to make the new planet look the same, and Goku sadly recalls how Frieza destroyed everything. Goku is hungry and gets the idea to eat one of the revived bugs, the insect that provides energy. When Goku eats the insect, he feels his stomach fill up a little and his energy increase, so he feels better. Goku senses that Vegeta and the others have already arrived in the second world and goes to meet them. Bulma loves the climate of the second world, saying it doesn't even feel like a demonic realm. She asks Piccolo if he misses it, but he says he's never lived in this world. Only his father did. Before long, Goku arrives at their plane. When Goku enters, he tells them to fly higher, or else a monster will get them. Vegeta mocks Goku for being scared of a monster, but just then, the Kraken appears and scares the crap out of Vegeta too. The Kraken nearly catches their plane, but Hybis manages to escape skillfully. And now comes a line that left me a bit puzzled. Vegeta is very impressed with the Kraken, and Goku says they don't have enough strength for that right now. Guys, what could that mean? Does it mean they can't destroy that monster? So Goku, who just defeated a Tamagami without even using half of his full power, can't beat that creature? Goku, Vegeta, and Piccolo together couldn't take it down? To me, it seems like that's what the anime is trying to say. And if that's the case, I think it doesn't make much sense at all. Back in the first world, Majin Buu finally admits defeat and gives up. Tamagami number 1 then goes back to his place, while Majin Buu and Arinsu leave. Arinsu says she's very disappointed and tells Majin Buu he's fired, but he says he can do her shopping and that he sings well. Honestly, this villain is as ridiculous as his appearance, at least for now. Goku guides Vegeta's team to the old Namekian planet. Goku says Piccolo must have missed this place, but Piccolo says no because he was born after his father left. However, to be honest, he does feel something good being there. Shin explains that the Supreme Kings were very selfish, and because the Namekians possess many abilities, they were very valuable and turned into slaves. And it's true, guys, the Namekian people suffer a lot because of their abilities. Pansy says Shin is also from the second world, and he confirms it. Bulma gets really curious about learning these things and wants to know more about Shin. He then starts to explain how the exile of the Glyns happened. He says that a long time ago, the Supreme King of Demons wanted to expand the realm, so he ordered the powerful Super Majin Remus to create the universe. This Remus was the highest authority in the universe. This Remus created several universes, and then many Majins started moving to these universes. Remus then selected a number of Glyns and sent them to monitor the universes as the Supreme Kais. Bulma then asks if all the inhabitants of the universe are descendants of Majins. Shin says not all of them. Earthlings and Saiyans, for example, were born after the universes were created. Shin says that many Glyn ancestors moved to a planet near Remus's. At that time, warp was used freely to travel between realms. Then Abura, Dabura's predecessor, feared that outsiders would threaten the demon realm and limited the use of warp. At that time, Shin was still in the demon realm, but almost all the Glyns, revolting against Abura's authoritarian methods, fled the demon realm. Shin explains that he was chosen as a Supreme Kai after that. Goku comments about Shin and his race members being born from trees. Shin then says the Glin trees have died, and Bulma gets a bit sad, saying they might go extinct because of this. Hybis thinks it's cool that Shin is a Glind and mentions the Gesu and Arinsu. Then Pansy says Shin is their brother. Bulma asks if Shin wants to visit his home planet, but Shin says no because there's nothing left there. Vegeta likes this and says they need to go after the Dragon Balls. After that, everyone heads to the ship, but at that moment, someone appears who had been there without them knowing. This someone is Neva, who ends the episode with a dark smile. In the preview for the next episode, we find out that episode 11 will be called Legend. We see Arinsu talking to someone and smiling for some reason. Then we see some scenes of the fight between Tamagami number 2 and Vegeta. So yes guys, in the next episode, we'll get Vegeta versus Tamagami. Finally, Vegeta is going to have a real fight in this anime. This episode was simply packed with information, including some really deep stuff, even explaining the origin of the Dragon Ball universes, which came from a certain Super Majin named Raimus. We also learned a bit more about why the Glins and Namekians fled the demon realm. And with this information that the Glins were extinct, maybe we can theorize more about the Jesu and Arinsu's goals. Perhaps one of them wants to bring back the Glind race using the Dragon Balls. We also end up wondering if this being called Raimus is still out there, being the ultimate entity of creation, just as Zeno seems to be the ultimate entity of destruction. Or maybe his role has been passed down from generation to generation, eventually reaching Zeno. And of course, there are some other mysteries too. Now we know who created the universes, but not who created the demon realm. But if anyone had any doubts before whether Dragon Ball DAIMA is really canonical and considering the events of Dragon Ball Super, now it is more confirmed than ever, since even the Kaioshins presented in Dragon Ball Super appeared in this episode. Well, there's a lot of new information, and we'll be discussing it more in future videos. Comment now what you thought about this episode and all these revelations. What's your rating for this episode? Leave a like on the video to help the channel. Subscribe so you don't miss any of our Dragon Ball content. And share this video with another Dragon Ball fan, so more people can discover our work. See you next time. Bye!